The leading lady gets knocked out, like, in Act 1, right? Midway through Act 1, unconscious.
She gets knocked out, like, 4 or 5
so many times.
Welcome to the Thank You Places podcast, celebrating the art of theater and the amazing people who make it happen.
Join us as we sit down to talk about our experiences, the shows we see, and what's happening on the local theater scene right here in Springfield, Missouri.
Today we are joined by a special guest and friend, Jodianne Loyd. She's an actress, writer, dramaturge, and more, with a passion for making theater accessible to all people.
We'll be talking about some of her favorite past and present projects, including her most recent appearance in The Play That Goes Wrong, and hearing how her goals and passions first took shape.
Thank you for tuning in, and enjoy the show. Places.
Thank you, Places!
Hello, and welcome to the Thank You Places podcast. Today we have Miss Jodianne Loyd as a guest, and we're going to be talking about a whole slew of fun things. We are your hosts, Noel Parrales and
Nathaniel Parrales.
And Allison Barker.
We are still married.
I would hope so.
for reference to our last episode.
Hey Jodianne, thanks for being here and chatting with us. Mm-hmm. First, I'd like to ask, where are you at in life? What are you up to these days? What are you doing?
Mentally or physically?
Strong start.
We'll go with physically. So I life where I'm at in life. That's the question, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. I made a joke too soon. I wasn't even listening.
This is a family podcast, just to be clear.
Great. Okay, so I am almost done with my first year of grad school. Congratulations. Almost survived. It's a Master's of Science in Occupational Therapy at Cox College, which is a part of the Cox Medical System here in Springfield, Missouri. So that's how that is, and I am working on an experimental production of Hamlet in Tulsa.
Yeah, you'll have to tell us more about that.
Yeah.
That's wild.
I didn't realize that was in Tulsa either.
Yeah. I love my hometown. Love it. So that's where I'm at.
Nice. Thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry to just whack you right off the bat with that. I was like, where can we start?
What was your undergraduate bit before that?
Yes. Okay. So I was born and raised in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Stayed there my whole life until I did undergrad, which was at the University of Oklahoma in Norman, Oklahoma. And I was a double major in theater with an emphasis in dramaturgy and acting. And then my other major was a BA in psychology.
So cool. Spicy.
Yes, while also completing my pre-occupational therapy track credits.
Ooh. Girl likes school.
I do really like school.
Good for you.
You have to like school to make it through that.
Right? Yeah, I was crazy. But it was a good time.
I love that. Yay.
Yeah.
So you studied theater in school,
Yes.
but what got you into theater? What was like your first show or like your first little nibble that you got to taste?
So my first show was a vacation Bible school show.
Nice.
I love it.
It was Boomerang
Church Foundation
Express.
represents.
Yeah.
I remember Boomerang.
It was Boomerang Express.
God.
I remember the character name too. Her name was Jenny. She was the one that got saved in the end. So she was the main character.
Okay. The final girl.
As they are.
Yeah, she was the sinner heathen.
Wow.
As sinner of a heathen as a 9-year-old child can be. Meaning she carried a Hannah Montana purse.
The scandal!
I carried a Hannah Montana purse at 9 years old. Yes.
The scandal!
Noel was also a Hannah Montana girly.
I was listening to it earlier.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm the holiest of this podcast.
So formative. But yeah, so that was my first brush with it. And yeah, so from there I did musicals at my high school. They had a program, so instead of it just being like the high school musical for like the year, it was an all-school musical, so there was like the kids like section of it and like the middle school section of it, and like the high schoolers did everything, but then there was like 2 or 3 scenes in Act 1 and Act 2 where they would bring in the like younger
littles.
kids. Yeah. So there's always like a little kids ensemble and like a so I started doing those pretty immediately after I did the whole VBS run. And I did those for like 8 years, and I did some community theater in Tulsa, and I just couldn't see myself stopping, and I haven't.
Yeah.
It really is like a drug, isn't it? You just
Unfortunately, very much is.
the best kind of drug.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I got started.
I love that. So you mentioned Vacation Bible School and high school stuff and everything. What is one of your favorite projects that you have worked on in the past of your life?
Okay.
It can just be one. It doesn't have to be your favorite.
No, like the thing is, I have like each different area of theater that I do, I have a favorite project that I've done for that area. So there's not like one overall.
Yeah.
There's several little ones. So like the favorite project that I've acted in, it was my junior year of undergrad. It was that production of Miss Bennet Christmas at Pemberley. And it's like the whole premise of the show is by Lauren Gunderson, who is, what am I saying? And it is the sequel to Pride and Prejudice, and it follows Christmas like 2 years later, and it really follows Mary Bennet, the middle sister. It was one of those stories like everyone was cast perfectly, and it was like such a dream, and like the design of the show is amazing, and the whole like it was such a dream, so amazing. So that has to be my favorite acting one. My favorite dramaturgy has to be Pride and Prejudice, which happened like a year later.
Sensing a theme.
I'm a big Jane Austen goily. It was with Oklahoma Shakespeare, which is a local regional theater in Oklahoma City. And it was directed by one of my professors, and I asked her if I could dramaturg it, and it was just like one of those where it's like you put your whole chest into it.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, this is the best my dramaturgy will ever be. So that was awesome. And then my favorite writing and directing was a production of Antigone that I adapted and I directed, and that was like my senior capstone production.
Cool.
It was I learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes, but it was really fun.
Haven't we all when we
right?
directed?
I was like, I am a hot mess, but this is so cool.
It's like you think you know how theater works, and then you direct something,
Yeah.
and then you realize you don't know
Yeah.
anything.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It was
you a lot.
such an enlightening experience, and I wrote like a whole paper afterwards. I was like, if I go back and do this, like, had I known that this would have played out this way, I would have made this choice. And blah, 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 blah. So that one has to definitely be a favorite and close to my heart.
Very cool.
Do you have any directing horror stories from that?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know when we have our Night on Broadway poster dead center, but that was our directorial
directing
debut.
debut, and it was. We had just started dating, and we were co-directing a show for the first time, and so.
And we're full-time college students.
Yeah. So like you learn how to communicate real fast with your significant other when you're both starting a relationship and trying to do a show at the same time.
I can't even imagine. I was having a hard time communicating with myself.
There
wasn't any separation of bodies there.
In the car, being like, "Oh, you don't talk to me." But it's fine. We figured it out. Now we're happily married. I like how our marriage is like a running gag. Like we're very happily married.
I was raised in Texas. Marriage is a running gag.
Oh.
Everywhere there. Teeth. Not that they don't take marriage seriously, just I grew up in Texas, I grew up Southern Baptist, we joke about marriage.
I also grew up Southern Baptist.
Yeah.
I can attest to that. Yeah. Not marriage as a joke, but it's the butt of a joke.
Yeah.
Many horror stories.
Oof.
There was one, oh gosh. One of my advisors had come to like see a rehearsal.
Oh, it's always those days.
It was always those days. And there was one part where, so if you're familiar with the story, Antigone buries her brother and it's against the law and her uncle's king. Greek tragedy. And she gets caught and she is standing trial and Creon doesn't realize that Antigone is the one that has done it. So there's like a hood covering her face and the audience can see her, so she turns around and he whips back the hood and then he whips it back down to like hide her identity from everyone else holding trial, and then like gets everyone out of the room so it can be a family matter. And during that whole exchange, something happened, and I don't understand what happened, but she ended up getting punched in the face. And this advisor is an amazing fight choreographer and intimacy coordinator. So I was like, this has never happened before. And she's like, where are the ice packs? I was like, I don't know.
This wasn't supposed to be a fight scene.
I was like, I don't know what happened. That one I felt egg all over my face. I was like, oh. So that was one of many stories of that process.
Now,
everyone's okay.
We're going to come back to that question in a second. But
Cool.
we're going to switch gears and talk about the show that we saw you recently in, The Play That Goes Wrong. That was a wild show. And to catch us up on some of the details, I'm going to pass my iPad off to Allison really fast.
Because I was ill-prepared. Okay.
You were prepared. Our printer was not.
Our printer was not.
That was not
Our
on
printer
you.
has been having meltdowns trying to get these notes ready for
But it's
tonight.
always when you're trying to print something last minute that the printer doesn't want to work.
Oh no,
And
I
should've
started
known.
trying to do this like earlier this week.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
okay, that's valid. All right, so The Play That Goes Wrong. If you're not familiar, it's super fun, and I'm just going to kind of give you background on the history of it. So, The Play That Goes Wrong premiered at the Old Red Lion Theatre in London, 2012. Three men named Jonathan Sayer, Henry Shields, and Henry Lewis, who also all starred in the production's original cast, wrote and directed. They directed it. They also co-founded Mischief Theatre, which is where The Play That Goes Wrong came from, and they have gone on to write and direct two other Goes Wrong productions, if you will. Peter Pan Goes Wrong and A Christmas Carol Goes Wrong, and a TV show.
Both
which
are
Noel,
hysterical.
they're
Which I have
hysterical.
gotten obsessed with.
And the TV
yeah.
show,
Funny.
Noel and Nathaniel have watched, I know that.
The Lager Bear is my favorite
yeah,
bit.
there's
The entire universe of their show.
It's really good. It's
Peter
really
Pan
good.
Goes Wrong just had a short run on Broadway too.
Yes, yes.
That also with the original cast.
Yeah. So The Play That
all.
Goes Wrong.
Dave Hearn
Almost,
isn't
yeah,
in it,
almost.
It's what?
Some original.
Most.
Oh, some of the original
90,
cast.
95%.
Nice.
Yeah.
They must really like
They're
this play.
really hanging on to this whole Goes Wrong concept.
Yeah.
It's been 11 years. Okay. So, to this day, The Play That Goes Wrong is the longest running play at the Duchess Theatre in London, in the West End. The Duchess Theatre opened in 1929, and The Play That Goes Wrong is their longest running play. So
Wow.
that's
Icon.
pretty cool. They brought it to Broadway in April of 2017 with the original cast. And actually, J.J. Abrams made his theatrical producing debut with this play, which, who knew? Like,
JJ.
I didn't even know that man was involved with theater.
JJ, I have questions.
I have some questions. So yeah. So this is a really cool little article bit that Sarah Hemming of the Financial Times wrote. She gave the play 4 out of 5 stars. And she said, "It's not new then, but it is often very funny. Though she found areas in the play that needed improvement, she quoted, 'It would be funnier if it started more subtly rather than at full tilt. The company could also make more of offstage dynamics, but she considered the play to be largely a joyous show.'" And we'll talk about that a little later. The play that
I
goes
already
wrong.
see you making faces about
Yeah.
You're like, what?
I have been told that I'm not good at hiding my faces, and I'm trying to
That's
work on
okay.
it.
Me neither.
And I was
That's
like,
okay.
it's a podcast, it's
That's
fine.
okay.
And then I look and I'm
We
like,
gave-
there are cameras.
You know what?
Great,
We gave
great.
the video viewers pretty much no content last episode,
that's
so
true.
you can help us out with that
I
now.
stuck that bit in for the drama.
For the
So-
drama.
Good, good,
Yeah.
good.
For the drama.
The play that goes wrong won a Tony for Best Scenic Design in a Play in 2017. That one's unsurprising because the set and the scenic design is fantastic, and
It's a hoot.
It is a hoot, and
crazy.
it's whoo! It just takes a lot. This play has been translated and licensed for production in over 30 countries, y'all.
Nice.
That's so many. And yeah, its biggest plot point thing is it's a play within a play. So we're going to continue to talk about some of that.
Nice.
I'm going to pass this back to Noel.
Nice. Let me hop back to where I was at.
So, tell me about your role again. We were talking about this before we started recording. That you were crew, but not crew, but nobody knew what the two meant.
Yeah. So how it was we had like the principal cast, so everyone who was playing their like mischief world persona playing the character. So we had all those people. And then there was a group of us that were their understudies, who were always there, always prepped, always ready to go in case something were to like legitimately go wrong.
Actual
to actually go
understudies.
And step in and resume the role. And we also played the stage crew that was seen visually. Then there was the legitimate backstage crew that they were also kind of seen at the end, but they did the heavy lifting backstage. So we would just come out for little bits and then we'd go back. So we had the cast, and then we had the crew, and then we had the crew, but we had never determined, like, it was never clear to me who crew was and who crew was. And it always... There was
Blurred lines.
Yeah, blurred
Yeah.
lines. We never know who was being called, so we all just kind of like came together for all the things, and all the information got out to where
And
it
it
needed
worked.
to go. So it worked, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, we are also understudies, so we could just call us understudies, but no,
No.
crew and crew.
I'm gonna clarify that the whole premise of That Goes Wrong universe thing is actors playing roles within shows.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's this convoluted thing of all these characters in stories being played by very iconic, characteristic actors. And so that's why it's very confusing
It's
to play
pretty-
within a
yeah.
play.
Yes.
So it's like the crew part that you were is pretty much actors.
Yeah, we
It
had...
is an acting position.
as
This
technically
is actually a fun fact. So we all actually, or not all of us, most of us had come up with fake names for ourselves and fake backstories. But, a few of us had actually made fake bios, but they didn't make it in time to be printed in the script. So it's like I can go and find the bio that I wrote, but mine, I took the name of one of the later additions to the Mischief Universe, Vanessa. Vanessa Calloway, and she has like a 3-hyphen last name. So it was like Vanessa, like Caraway, something else. So it was like one of those. And I had this whole thing of like, it is my honor to be studying under Sandra. And all these things, and I was like, "Hey, Trevor, can you add some of Sandra's credits because I don't have any?" But like all this whole thing. And one of the other understudies, Joe, had like done something like that. So it's like we also we weren't ourselves being crew. We were
Nice.
actors being crew and understudy.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's a little fun. Fact.
Fantastic. I have a question about how detailed were the stage directions in the script?
Yes. Okay. So, wild story. There are actually like 3 or 4 versions of the script.
Oh.
And then that's not even like getting into like high school adaptations and one act adaptations. Like there are just different versions and different iterations of it. So I had actually like last year, 2 years ago, time is weird. I had purchased, I think it was like version 3, just because I was like, I had seen it in West End, and I was like, I need to know like how much of this was real, how much of it was improv, what actually went wrong. Like I just needed to know for my own brain, because it was keeping me up at night always.
That's what we're getting at.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. Found the point. So I purchased it, and in that version, the stage directions were all so detailed, and also within the stage directions there were alt jokes. So I remember when I saw it, if you guys remember, there's the whole bit where the director, Chris Bean, he sits on the chaise lounge, and he's supposed to sit on a ledger, but earlier, like 3 scenes prior, the ledger had been moved to under.
Yes.
So he's like, the ledger! And it just like keeps escalating. Whenever I had seen it, our audience was really warm and just like so excited about everything. And there was like, you have to be, exactly. And there was someone that was like kind of sitting in the back of the house where my mom and I were sitting. They were like, "It's under the shade!" So they had yelled out, and the director, he like stood on the edge and he like leaned forward. He was like, "You do not do that." And he went on like a 5-minute rant, and he was like, "This is live theater. You can't be interrupting like that." He's like, "How?" He was like, "This is my show." Like he like red-faced was getting so angry, and I was
Like
sitting
in
there.
character or the actor?
See?
Like,
In
both.
but
hands?
he wasn't playing his character as the inspector. He was like
Playing his
as-
character
Chris-
as the
Chris
director.
Bean, the director.
Playing the director,
Inspector.
mortally offended. He's like, "I know what comes next. I know. I directed this. I know. I will find it. I found." Like he was going, he was going so. Like, and I was sitting there
A+
mortified.
See, but it works.
Yeah.
It worked. I was red faced, and like my mom and I were staying at a bed and breakfast, and the next morning we woke up and we went down. And I was having porridge, and I was still mortified. And I was trying to explain to her, I was like, I don't know if like because this one person interrupted, if they skipped like 10 pages of dialogue.
I feel
what was
that.
this? Oh my, like I was so
Stress.
mortified.
Yeah.
And so then I bought the play and I read it, and it's written in there as an alt joke of like, sometimes
somebody interrupts
if
you-
someone interrupts you, this
Like
is what you
if-
say.
That's
If
fantastic.
the audience does that, yeah,
That's crazy
valid.
that they're prepared
Okay, I'm gonna
for
have
that.
to buy a script.
They're so prepared.
Yeah.
They're so prepared. And so there were several times where it's like, some
Wow.
audiences do this. If they do, here are all the
guess it's
alt
prepared,
jokes. It was wild. And so I was, oh
love
gosh.
that.
So
But then-
there's, yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
finish.
Okay,
Oh,
so,
yeah.
but it like the stage directions were so detailed to the point of like, in the middle of the line, the stage direction will be put in of like steps on floorboard springs up, hits him in the face. Like it is so
there.
incredibly detailed about what's to occur. So that was the version that I purchased and read independently before I even moved to Springfield and knew that this play was happening in my vicinity. The version that we were doing, I want to say it was either the first version or the 4th version. I can't remember. But they specifically, they being Springfield Little Theater, had chosen that version because of the lack of detailed stage
interesting.
direction, so there was
Okay.
more room for creativity.
And adaptability.
So, yes,
That
yes,
was going to
yes.
be my next question. Did the Landers add things, or
Yes, 100%.
they come
Because
up
there
with
was
their own jokes?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And there were some things that
Or
was
like Landers specific for the stage and stuff.
Yeah. One of them being was like the lightsabers in the
That
middle
was a
of the
great
fight.
bit.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my
It was
gosh.
really good.
It was so funny.
That wasn't
Like,
in the original script. They just
I don't
and
so
I
think.
don't
genius.
remember
Yeah.
that being on
That's
the
so
West End
good.
version. So there's little things like that, but then there were some things that were like physically we could not do. Of like we had purchased the set from Fine Linen Theater
Oh.
up in
Oh.
Rolla, Missouri.
Oh wow. Okay.
So we
cool.
purchased it from them, and then I think we have since it has since been purchased from Springfield Little Theater to another company.
Nice.
But so like the bit that was in the version that I had that was also kind of written into the version that we were producing was the whole like stepping on the floorboard and the floorboard coming up and whacking him in the face, and that's also like written into the like pre-show set of like hammering in some of the floorboards
Yeah.
to set up that joke. But that wasn't an option. We didn't have like a fake flooring. We just used the floor of the stage. So there are some things like that where it's like logistically
You can't do that.
couldn't.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
That's fascinating.
And that takes a lot of like a very detail-oriented person to go through that script and be like, we can't do this, we can do this. What if we added this here? Like, that's so cool.
Which I've never worked with Beth, who directed it, but I've heard nothing but amazing things about her. That she's just so on the ball with that.
And what was awesome was it was actually 2 directors, so it was Beth and Marnie.
Oh wow!
So the duo of them
Very
working
cool.
together was awesome.
Yeah.
Which I think a show of this caliber, like they both brought all of their strengths and made the show what it was.
Fantastic.
Very cool.
So your crew bits that sorry, I'm gonna take on a tangent. Your crew like before Act 1 and during intermission when the crew is on, kind of trying to like fix everything up. I'm guessing that was mostly kind of thought up on the fly, or was any of that laid out?
So we had talked about it very early on in rehearsals, like especially the first week when all the understudies, like we were all at rehearsals and like doing everything. Because, you know, like at a certain point you're like, let the actors do their thing, then we'll come in to learn our stuff.
Yeah.
Sure.
At a later date. So we had talked about it pretty early on, so we're like, we're going to be subtle with the audience about like finding the dog and finding the CD case. And then like Act 2 we'll go on and we'll be behind the curtain, so we'll be like putting stuff up and it'll look really, really hectic. But then by the time it came to like tech and dress week, then we were like, oh, we need to like really figure out these bits of what we're going to do.
Joe just with his confetti the
Oh
entire
my gosh!
time.
Oh my gosh! Yes.
It's just set context. So the crew in play that goes wrong, the acting crew, not the crew. Like, however that pans out, have bits before the show. They're like going around trying to get everything set, and so they're visible to the audience. They're like trying to find a lost dog, and then during intermission, after like half the set has fallen apart, they like fix it all back up. So that's the part that we're like referencing her in there.
Yeah, so we had divided it all out because there were so many of us. We had such a large crew on that show, like not only like crew and crew, like there was just a surplus of people because all of the understudies, so there was like pretty much an understudy per role.
Wow.
So that was like 6 to 8 of us. And so then we like sat down and we divided out all of the things that we were supposed to do. And then it was just one of those things where we would try something and then the directors would be like, that was really fun, let's tweak it to look like this, or be like, kind of take us away, let's try this instead. So like pretty much the week leading up was just a lot of that give and take and just trying to strike the right balance of not showing our hand too early of like when the set was going to fall down, or, like what we were up to, our shenanigans, but also like giving us stuff to do. Yeah.
So like just barely sprinkling in a little bit of telegraphing, maybe like foreshadowing of what's to come, but not.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
I think that's what, I know we're going to talk about it in a minute, but I think that's what that quote is chatting about, that Allison said earlier, of like holding your cards close to you a little early on and like gradually going through, because I can see where some companies would just start 100% and then there's nowhere to grow throughout the whole show.
And that has to be a thing, is like if you are going to start at 100 you do have to end at 200, so like there has to be that growth regardless. But like I think the directors really wanted that to be like a punch at the end of like how many people are backstage and just letting all of this stuff go wrong. So there was several bits that we did that we all thought were hilarious, and directors included, but then they were like that it's setting up too much too soon. So there were several things, like whenever an actor would get like hit by the shield of the door, like I would be back there with like a first aid kit, like trying to patch him up. So like there was a lot of things that got cut, but it was fine.
I love that. That's funny. Wow. Speaking of actors getting hit in the face with shields, what was your favorite bit of the show? I think my favorite bit was the stagehand busting her arms through the mantelpiece to hold the candlesticks after the mantle of the fireplace.
The timing
fell
of that
off.
was always impeccable. Sarah was fantastic at that. It
Bam.
was and she could always get such good distance on that every single time. It was
the panels flew.
It was so funny. Sarah was fantastic.
Yeah, that was my favorite bit. What was yours?
My favorite bit. That's thought so hard. That is.
Alice and
really,
Nathaniel,
really
you think
hard.
of yours too.
Yeah, I'm
'cause I
thinking.
don't know.
I've got
I'm
mine.
really thinking.
What was yours then, Nathaniel?
It has to be when Trevor, the stage manager, has to come on. So by the time the leading lady gets knocked out, like in Act 1, right? Midway through Act
Unconscious.
1,
She gets
unconscious.
knocked out like 4 or 5
so many times.
That
And so-
stage fight that goes for like 20 minutes, impeccable.
It
Loved
honestly,
it.
yeah.
Sorry,
Thank
side
you.
note.
Yeah,
No,
so
yeah.
This girl that is in the crew that is doing this mantle thing as well, like picks up a script and reluctantly has to take on the role, and then she gets knocked out, and so it was perfect too because SLT had this big burly beard, long hair, manly guy playing Trevor, the stage manager, who has to come on right as the character Sandra or Miss Collymore, played by Sandra, you know,
Yeah.
right as the
Hilarious.
female character is like being super flirtatious
Yeah.
with her like secret lover and about to kiss him,
woman.
and he has to step on right
It's
then.
really funny.
It was just.
Yeah.
That is such a good pick.
I was rolling because I saw it
Yeah.
coming too. I think we read it because I auditioned for it too. We read it in auditions, that section as well, and I was like, this is going to be amazing on stage, and it was.
I think I've said all my. So, it was following that. So, like, right before Matt, Trevor, the stagehand, takes over that role, Sandra had just immediately been knocked out and then shoved in the clock.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I loved all the things with the clock, but, like, one of my favorite things was right before we got mics, so, like, we were obviously rehearsing without mics until tech, but the inside of the clock had, like, 3-4 inches of foam just, like, surrounding it. Like, it was very much
Just
like a
in
sense...
case.
Cushy. Yeah, because,
Well,
like,
'cause you
the...
really
like,
had to
it
tip it
tilts
over.
also,
Yeah.
like,
One of my
So you don't want-
favorite bits.
Yeah, like, you don't want her jostled, and, like, thank you, it was amazing. But it was one of those things where it just ate up all the sound, so she's in there, like, screaming her heart out, like, I am not Inspector, and all you can hear on the outside is, like, I am not Inspector. It was so funny. It was so funny. So there were so many bits that, like, I had fallen in love with that just, like, didn't quite, like, make it through tech.
Yeah.
That are just like and then there was something that actually that happened in tech that made its way into the show. Still same bit, so she's in the clock, but now she's on the chaise in the clock. And
So good.
Thomas Collymore, played by Jamie Kimball Bower, had, not from Stranger Things, but had thrown a cup of water to, like, wake her up from being fainted. And somehow he had just, like, thrown it at just the right spot, and it made its way through the crack, like, in the door, and it just hit her face, and she, like, she got the funniest sound. Rachel was over, she was like, oh! And so that ended up finding its way into the show, but it was, like, the little things like that just, like, happened, like, my heart fell in love with.
I
So
thought
those
of
are my favorites.
I thought of my favorite was when, I can't remember if it was Act 1 or 2. I feel like it was Act 2 where they kept going around in circles in the dialogue.
That was
Yeah,
like,
that's
they
the end of Act
couldn't-
1.
that was
Yeah.
like my close second.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they couldn't get out of like this 2-minute section of dialogue. They just kept going in circles and saying the same thing over and over again, and they kept having to drink the paint thinner because it was so good.
It's supposed to be Scotch, but it had been
It's
switched out for paint
supposed to be
thinner
Scotch, and it
accidentally.
said paint thinner really big on the
Yeah.
front, and kept
beautiful.
pouring them paint thinner. It was really
So
good.
just
Such a fun bit.
JDS is a hoot. I
Yeah,
love
it
him.
was really
Yes. Everyone
Playing
killed it. It was
Dennis
such a good
slash
cast.
The butler.
good. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, so I
Great
think
times.
yeah, so I have tons of them, tons of little bits. that I loved.
Tell us something that actually went wrong during a performance. I know there has to be at least
Oh, I don't
a
think there was a
handful.
single performance where everything
fantastic.
went correctly.
When did something go right that wasn't supposed to?
So there was something that kept going wrong too early was the door. We, as the cast, struggled with the door. It became its own character, and, like, eventually, like, we figured out, like, what what people coming through at what points, the door would just kind of like give and fall off on its own. So like by the end of the run, we knew when these things were going to happen, so it was more used to it. But like during tech and during that first weekend, we were like, this door is just gonna pop off. So the door was screwed in to the set for Act 1 because the door doesn't fall off at all; it just gets jammed and locked. But then Act 2, during intermission, the real crew takes the screws out and it's just held by magnets. But if the door opened a little too wide, the
hinges pop off.
Yeah, the hinges pop up and it would just fall off. Oh. So it all throughout Act 2, there was just one of like the fake crew back there just like always out there ready to just kind of like grab it and just like hook it back on with help of someone from on stage, because then the hinges would flip and then we're sitting there struggling with the door. So the door always had to be was always the pain. But it became its own character, so like we worked around it.
It become its own kind of bit too. I mean, this is a very improv heavy show.
Very improv heavy. But there was even one thing where it's like we had something on the bookcase wasn't quite set and it turned and it like flew off and then got caught in the little turnstile things. Oh no! So there was like little things like that where it's like we were able to recover and like someone was able to pull it out really quickly, but we're all watching the monitor and we're like, oh my god. There's a lot. There was one where the dummy got caught up on one of the platforms because at one point Thomas Collingmore, Jamie Bauer, Campbell Bauer again, was supposed to like fall from like the top unit to the floor, and the only way we could do it was like throw the dummy down, but like the dummy I was the one catching the dummy, so I don't actually know what happened. All I could see was like at the top of the platform was like legs peek over and then like come back out, and then like the legs peek back over again and come back out, and I'm like, the cue was 2 lines ago. And so I'm like sitting there like up against the wall like waiting to catch this dummy that is just not falling, and then I hear like a thunk, like against the wall, and that was Jamie trying to throw the dummy back up to the person on the ladder to then throw it back over. Oh my And then God. Finally the dummy fell and it fell so wonky that like the head got caught on the windowsill and like fell, and I was like, well, Jamie just broke his neck.
Jamie is definitely dead.
Oh no! But I just remember watching and being like, what's going on back there? Yeah, so many stories.
Wild.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to enchant us with about the play that goes wrong before we move on?
I don't know. I think one of the funniest things that like none of the audience got to experience was before we got the crew. It was just the understudies doing everything backstage. So it'd be like one of those things where it was like 2 of us were doing one thing and then I was on the other side of the stage, and then we would all just like run around and switch places and do the next thing that we were slated to do, and then like run back and do the next thing. So and the set was like half built that time, so you could see everything. So it's just like people running laps back and forth to like make sure that the wrong prop is set in the right place and all of these things. And it's like, well, thank God there's a beautiful set blocking us, because it really shows like how much work goes into making the show go wrong. It was purposely.
It was fantastic.
It's like behind the scenes is just a scramble in the dark. Any show.
Any
show. I do want to know if you know how the platform worked, because they had a platform that went down, and then over the course of the act it like drops to further levels as well. How was that, like some sort of counterbalance system? Or?
Yes, exactly. It was a counterbalance system. So there was. I'm trying not to get too close to the mic, but also like have hands out to be seen.
We'll figure it out.
You can move the mic too if you need to.
Yeah.
We have the good tech. Movable mics.
So it was a platform. So it's like audience. So hi audience. Audience is facing the platform. Behind the scenes, there was a kind of like a rack looking thing that was like a hinge attached to this platform that had weights on it. So what would happen whenever it fell is like they would have to take out like the safety rod that like made sure that the platform was locked into place, and then our lovely stage manager Michelle, so like there was the rack, would call it, and what everyone would do is they would like lift up this pole and it would raise to like this next notch. So like the whole device together was like there was the rack. and then there was like a quarter of like a circle thing
wow.
like right here that had notches in it. So it would fly up and up and up.
It's like a giant protractor.
Exactly,
I see.
exactly. And so as that
Yummy.
side was going up and they were taking
Genius.
weights off to lift it up,
Freaking love theater.
then
Yeah.
exactly, right? And then the platform in the front was coming down. So it was all very safe, and we had choreographed it so like the actors
Nice.
knew exactly where to hold on,
Yeah.
what spots were safe. They knew exactly what it felt like. So yeah, so that's
Wow.
that's how that worked. And then everything else on the set was magnets.
Wow.
So like everything falling on and off, like the curtain rods and the little doodads on the wall, those were all magnets. The painting, it was a nice painting of the dog.
The dog was,
good
yeah,
painting.
it was a good
It was, it's a good painting. We took really good care of that. Was on like a carabiner on like wire line, so that way whenever it fell, it wouldn't break the painting
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it was a nice painting. But that one was also held up by magnets, and then same with the sword that gets stuck in the platform. That was also held up by magnets. But that front beam under the platform, that was purely vanity. So like all of the stunts that Corey, who played Jonathan, did were all very choreographed to avoid the beam because any kick to that and it would
just
just
tip over.
yeah.
because it wasn't holding
I
up
was
to
It
the-
wasn't out holding anything. Yeah.
I was
Until the
expecting
point
it
where someone
to get
did
tackled.
take out the beam.
Yeah.
But it still shook me when it
It
did.
did,
I was
yeah,
like,
same.
oh, there
Yeah.
it goes.
Yeah, and you can see like there was the moment where it's like everything was fine and there was no beam and the platform was still there and then that's when everything
Yeah.
Great.
went down. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So it was
Good
a
time.
beautifully
That's
built set.
amazing.
Yeah.
it was so fun. It's
Yeah.
very fun.
Those are the little things that made me like love the theater so much. Is
Yeah.
like the little like how this was executed.
Yeah. And what was fun was the people at Fine Linen that had built it, they had stuck googly eyes on everything. So
Yes!
it's one of those things where it's like anytime
love that.
the bookcase would swivel, there was googly eyes on the back. The original back of the door had a bathroom sign on it, like woman's bathroom, that had googly eyes on it. We had taken that off
I
and
love
said like
it.
paint it brown. But the clock, there was googly eyes all over the inside of the clock, so every time that door was open, there was just a pair of googly eyes. And it was one of those things where it's like, we knew it was on there, but like,
You couldn't see it from
You
the
couldn't
audience.
see
You wouldn't be able to
Audience?
see that, yeah, from the
well, like
balcony
an
or
audience
the
member
window.
would have to come several times to be able to like catch those little details
Yeah.
that like we became very
Aw.
acquainted with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
So it was
that.
very cute.
I love that.
So, tell us what you're working on right now.
I am working on an experimental production of Hamlet entitled Who's Hamlet? And the reason it is called that is the lovely creators, directors, and producers who have conceived of this. It's Cody McCoy, Kathy Woods, and Ashley Corral, all based in Tulsa. Shout out to them. Love them. Have been wanting to do this concept for a while, and it's Hamlet, obviously. No surprise there. And the whole thing is divided into two casts. There's the like permanent cast, and then there's a floating cast. And how the floating cast works is that for the roles of Hamlet, Ophelia, Gertrude, and Claudius, there are 4 actors of any age, race, gender, height, weight, of anything that learn all 4 tracks.
Oh, wow.
So then before the show, during pre-show, like we're all out there doing drinking games and songs and like having fun. Then the audience will select who's going to play which role.
Oh, wow.
So all 4 of them will be on every night for a role. They just don't know which one.
Wow.
So they're all rehearsed for all the tracks. So they'll all be on every night. They just don't know for what role.
Wow.
And then everyone else is like locked down. They're always in that role.
Wild.
Yeah, so that's why it's called Who's Hamlet, because you don't
Yeah, you don't know
you
who's
don't know who
Hamlet.
Hamlet's
That's
gonna be.
very cool. Hamlet?
Yeah, so it could be a completely different experience every single night you see, because
cool.
What
yeah.
What are the dates for that?
the dates are, it is end of June, like the last 2 weekends of June, and then kind of bleeds into July.
Okay.
I'm
So
planning on seeing it. We can
Yeah.
carpool. We can figure something out. Yeah.
It'll be fun. There will be food and drink. It'll be great. But it's very experimental, and it really focuses on addiction and self-harm and oh gosh, just all of the things that are naturally in the script. So like Ophelia's a drug addict.
Oh wow.
Hamlet struggles with self-harm. Laertes, who I play, has a spending problem. Little on the nose. But everyone has their struggles, and it's all about like the demons within.
Wow.
And how that affects it.
Fascinating.
It's
Very cool.
very fascinating.
It's really cool.
Such a fun take on it, and the entire cast and crew and creative team are just like putting their full chest into it, and it's so fun.
Yeah.
So the floating cast has been in rehearsals, I think, since February, and then the rest of us have just joined rehearsals with music and dance, because it's starting with a huge opening number.
Ooh.
Yeah, super super fun. Don't want to give too much away because it's pretty awesome. And with fight choreography and everything, and then we'll get into full swing of rehearsals starting this month, May.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And then we'll do the show. We'll do the thing.
That's awesome.
that.
Yeah, so that's what I'm up to currently. It's a great time.
That is a great time. Yeah. Dang.
So I'm
Nathaniel?
guessing that's like, blanked. I'm guessing that's like modernized language and stuff. Or are you like
No, so
Wayne,
it's
all with original language?
Yeah, all original
Oh.
text. Just like parts of the script have been
It's the
cut
same
down
English.
as Shakespeare is, because he repeats
Sure.
a ton of
Sure.
stuff.
Wordy,
Yeah,
wordy,
wordy,
boy.
wordy, wordy,
It's very
wordy.
wordy. Yeah.
But yeah, no. So there is an emphasis on the language and dynamic pentameter, and just like
Very cool.
paying homage to that, to all the beauty that is the language.
It is really beautiful.
Yeah.
But just kind of like going at it through a different lens,
Very
which
cool.
is really exciting.
Yeah.
And we love language, so
Yeah. We love it.
poetry. Yeah.
You were gonna say something?
Oh, I was gonna ask if you would tell us about the next things that we're talking about that are in the pipeline.
Would love to do that. So this upcoming weekend, we are visiting our alma mater to see Children of Eden at Evangel. We're going to be talking about that, a good Stephen Schwartz classic. And then we'll be seeing The Great Gatsby this weekend as well. So excited literarily for that one as well.
Yeah.
And
Pictures
then I
for
guess
that
we'll
one
have
look amazing.
Oh yeah, those pictures have looked very good.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
good time. They were supposed to open tonight.
I know.
But several cast members got sick and they had to cancel the performance.
I know.
So they're opening tomorrow night.
I really hope
I
that they get better before tomorrow night.
Yeah.
I'm
I know.
sad for them.
I know.
That's really disappointing on your opening.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know. Well, it's better now and not. I mean, I was part of a show that everyone caught COVID the third weekend, and I never got to actually see the show.
No.
But it's okay.
That was one of the fears that I think it's safe to say that everyone in the cast and crew of Play That Goes Wrong had, and that's why all the understudies were so rehearsed and so prepared of like, this is a real thing that we need to face, and
All the shows I've worked with that company since then always have like a secret fourth weekend scheduled just in case they have to shut down a weekend, because they were like, never again, we're never doing that again.
that's iconic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think after, I think SLT's season as well, they like, there was a switch of understudies. I saw Beauty and the Beast has a bunch of understudies as well. Pippin had understudies.
Yeah.
I think after, because Something Rotten, the season opener, we had to like,
Oof, that was rough.
we had to restage like all the ensemble stuff second weekend because we had people out, and then we had a couple of close calls during White Christmas. So
Yeah,
I think
and
they
sure
decided
there were
that
injuries in White Christmas that took people.
Yeah.
injuries
there
as
were.
well. Yeah.
Because both of us had to
There was
take over parts that were not.
it was
Claire, too.
like a
Yeah.
spiritual attack on White Christmas, man. Like it was.
It was a
There was all kinds of stuff going on there.
There was
Yeah, I
all
think they decided they're gonna play it safe for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Well, Nathaniel and I were looking at what shows are happening in the month of May, and there's honestly not a lot because the theater season is in the little pause during May. But there are 2 shows coming to Hammond's Hall here in
Our
Springfield.
Springfield listeners.
Chicago is coming for May 6th, And My Fair Lady is May 16th through 18th.
And that was the first show that us three were in together. We should all go see it.
I love My Fair Lady.
I don't know if I want to fork over a lot lot of money to see My Fair Lady.
That's valid.
I feel like I could just re-sing the music of My Fair Lady, and I didn't. I'd be like, yeah, that was good.
3-person show.
Yeah, let's do it.
Wouldn't be the first time. Yeah.
Anywho, thank you again for joining us, Jodianne. It's been a pleasure to chat with you and everything.
Yes,
Where can people find you?
Oh yeah.
You have links and websites and such.
People can find me on the digital sphere. You can friend me on Facebook if you still are into that. You can follow me on the Instagram, Jodianne Jodianne _Grace. That's my handle. I also have a website, and it is jodianneloyd.com, where you can explore my entire creative portfolio.
Linked in the description.
Yes.
It's a great website. It's really robust.
Thank you. If anyone needs any website building or graphic design, I really enjoy doing
Plug
that.
it, girl.
Yeah. And as always, you can find us on our social medias and on YouTube and all the things. Remember to rate and review if you liked listening to our podcast. We are really enjoying having little chats with each other. So see you guys next time. Bye.
Good time.
Thank you for listening to the Thank You Places podcast.
If you liked what you heard, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast and share it with your friends.
For more information and to stay up to date, check out Thank You Places on Facebook and follow us on Instagram at Thank You Places True. That's TROUPE.
Once again, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.